Well, it's apparent that the new Willow series isn't appeasing the vast majority of audiences and is doing the opposite, as we can see with the Rotten Tomato score right here, having an average score of the audience being 31%, which is not good at all, and of course having many critics appraise this film for being such uh, a beautiful film, having all this agenda back in it, of course. Where its predecessor, the original film that came out 34 years ago, for the vast majority, everyone enjoyed it. Even though it wasn't the best in what it did, it still had that rescue the princess storyline, which many can connect with and enjoyed. Whereas this new Willow film has become what all queer fantasy love stories should feel like, and that every single film that's being released today should have some sort of queerness agenda backing it, just so it can appease to the 1% of the viewers rather than the other 99% of the viewers. Willow's Kit Tantalos does not look or act like your typical princess. Actor Ruby Cruz imbues Kit with a brash, roguish charm that would put Mad Morgan himself to shame. Of course, it would put the masculine role of the previous film in shame because nowadays everything is anti-masculine or toxic masculinity is harmful and that it should be abolished and that every single male character in every one of these films should be weak and pathetic. Kit is stubborn and often petulant to a fault, but prefers leather armor to ball gowns, is quick with her sword, and as was pointed out in episode 4, has it bad for her best friend and self-appointed protector Jade Claymore. As it happens, level-headed and loyal Jade is also head over heels for Kit. Of course, the female lead in this show wants to be all down and dirty instead of being pretty, because that's how in the real world is apparently. Not, yeah, of course. For years now, fans have been clamoring for a queer Disney princess, and in some way, Willow has delivered. I don't know about you, but I have not been clamoring for a queer Disney princess. Now, if they were to do that, there is a right way to do it, but in most cases, these studios tend to fail in trying to deliver the right way in making these films be somewhat enjoyable for the vast majority of the audiences, would ultimately fail. There's always good examples, such as in Stranger Things, with one of the main characters, that being Will Byers, possibly having fans speculate he's gay because he likes Mike Wheeler, which is another main character in the film. And that is understandable because that does occur in the real world, and people can connect with that. Whereas these films and shows that are coming out nowadays, they just shove it down your throat as if it's very unnatural. It's not natural for these types of things to happen in the world, and yet they still continue to do it. Jade and Kit's story has all of the beats of a traditional fantasy romance, but with a modern sensibility to it. Now, all those other traditional fantasy romance stories, they tended to do fairly well because why? Because they resonated with the vast majority of the people watching it. And not with all this modern bull crap that's been coming out lately. Which is why Willow, as I've said, is extremely low on the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, making it feel fresh in a new genre that often teases queerness but steers away from it in the end. It doesn't feel fresh or new. These types of shows and films have been coming out for the past few years. It's not new or nothing revolutionary. It's been coming out for years. The result here is an organic and utterly charming plotline. It doesn't feel like it was devised just to include token representation. Yeah, it actually does feel like it is token representation because they're shoving it down people's throats. Having the main character, female lead, as we can see right here, rescuing a male lead. The Lady in the Night is a chivalric, if somewhat overwrought, trope that most fantasy fans will be familiar with, and yet they still tend to enjoy it. The lady is portrayed as a beautiful and dignified, if somewhat helpless, young woman who needs saving. The knight is a strong and handsome man who has sworn to protect her. As their relationship grows, they often become romantically entangled. Will takes this trope and gleefully flips the entire thing on its head. Instead of a young man, a young woman is determined to become a knight in shining armor, and the beautiful lady in question isn't afraid to get her hands dirty and is perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Now we take this to the real world. Many of the male jobs that females don't do is getting down and dirty. Men are in the sewers, they're doing construction, they're doing all these jobs that no female wants to work. and yet they're still trying to shove it down people's throats that females do want to do this. Well, where's the proof? If you look at all the studies, females don't want to do those types of jobs. They don't want to get dirty. They want to be clean. That's why we're seeing many females tend to want to be in more helpful roles, such as being nursing, in a nurse position. Rather than shy away from queerness or make a spectacle of it, Willow joyously celebrates in a way that's still missing from so many fantasy and sci-fi shows. Once again, that is false. So many films and shows nowadays are doing it. Maybe not in the fantasy realm, but many shows are in films. Often queerness becomes a complication within the story. A character might feel like they have to hide who they are or come out in their companions before their adventure can progress. But that's not the case here, because the case here is that this wouldn't happen in the real world. The case here would happen in the real world. And Willow isn't just a show about swashbuckling adventures, it's a show about love and how to take care of one another. Over the course of the series, Willow and his companions have become a fond family. Almost immediately after entering the wildwood, Willow and company are captured by bloodthirsty bone reavers and separated from one another. Kit, much to her dismay, is locked up with Elora, leaving her to worry about Jade's safety. Elora clearly has fed up with her mutual pining as Borman proceeds to tell Kit, "I believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe." Of course it's love. It's not confidence or a pursuit of a better future. It's not that. It's love. Elora is, of course, talking about her relationship with Ark, but the sentiment applies to Kit and Jade too. When ensues is a brilliant, if somewhat brief moment between two characters who have otherwise spent most of the season at each other's throats. It's also incredibly refreshing to watch Kit's feelings for Jade aren't trivialized, used against her, or turned into a shocking reveal. Instead, it's made clear that Elora and everyone else in their band of adventurers are truly rooting for Kit and Jade. Man, I brought a tear to my eye reading that. Eventually, with the help of some truth plums, Kit and Jade are able to confess their feelings for one another in the depths of the wild woods, where, of course, where all the emotions come out when you're in these woods. It's aided with the help of another well-worn fantasy trope, but it's a heartfelt confession of love that's been slowly building over 5 episodes, and presumably for much longer than that. For the first time since the beginning of the show, they're able to put aside their respective titles and just be two young women who are hopelessly in love with each other. And once again, studios will not understand why many of these titles that are being released are failing with the vast majority of audience, because they continue to do these stupid things over and over again, instead of it being somewhat of a natural occurrence where you would, understand why these characters come about and the way they feel for each other. Instead, they shove it down people's throats, and it ultimately fails with the audience. Anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this topic. I hope you guys subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.